The jury had just retired after hearing the closing arguments from the defense and the prosecution. It was already quite late, around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so the judge ordered the jurors to be sent back to the hotel where they had been isolated for the duration of the 2-week trial, which was the culmination of an investigation that had lasted nearly a year. The defendant was taken back to the Tarrant County Correctional Facility in Fort Worth, and nothing else happened until Monday, when the jury was scheduled to reconvene. I decided to return to my room at the Hilton Garden Inn in downtown Dallas, stopping at a bar along the way for a beer and a bite to eat. I had just finished my hamburger and was halfway through my beer when I heard a woman's voice behind me. "Hey, cowboy, buy a girl a drink?" she asked. I turned around and looked at the source of the question. She looked familiar, and then I realized who she was. "Ashley? Ashley Marks, is that really you?" I asked. "Yes, it's me," she replied, smiling so brightly that it could have melted the ice on the polar ice cap. I invited her to sit down and waved to the waitress. "My goodness, how long has it been? 16, 17 years? How have you been?" I asked. "I think it's been 17 years, she replied. Ashley was one of my best friends in high school, along with Steve Jenkins and Jolene Carter. Together, we were known as the Four Musketeers. But everything changed when Ashley's father got a job in Austin during our senior year. I hadn't seen or heard from her since. "I'm doing well," she said. "I went to the University of Texas, graduated, got married, got divorced, and now I'm a reporter for the Austin Statesman." "Wow, you've had a very interesting life. What happened?" I asked. She shrugged. "I was married," she said, emphasizing the I. "Unfortunately, he wasn't married, or at least he didn't remember his vows. After I caught him cheating on me for the third time, I said I'd had enough and kicked him out of town," she said. "I think he got a job at McDonald's in Beaumont." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said. "I know how that feels, believe me. So what brings you to Big D?" "I've been covering the Jenkins trial for the last couple of weeks. What a nightmare. I saw you testify the other day," she said. "I'm so sorry about Jolene. Whatever mistakes she made, she didn't deserve to die like that." I didn't respond. No, Jolene didn't deserve to die like that. I would have preferred something more painful, like being burned at the stake. But that option, like so many others, had been denied me by the man I once considered my best friend. "So, how are you doing, Bill Jennings?" she asked, interrupting my thoughts. "Just as expected, considering that the last 16 years of my life have been complete bullshit," I replied. "At least you have children," she said. I nodded. "Yeah, I guess," I said. "They're mine, at least legally." "You may not be their biological father, but trust me, you're their father in every sense of the word," she said. "You're probably right," I said. "But that doesn't make it any easier." "Listen, I have to confess something to you," she began. I looked at her, wondering what she was up to. "You know, all the journalists in this room will want to know your story. I'd like to tell it if you don't mind," she said. "I know you probably have a lot of trust issues, and I completely understand. But no one knows you like I do. Listen, if it helps, we'll sign a contract. You give me exclusive rights to your story, and I'll protect you from the wolves. As your publicist, I won't publish anything without showing it to you first. My editor has already approved it, and I want to do this right." Deep down, I knew she was right. Reporters from every major news agency in the country, CNN, Fox News, Associated Press, you name it, had contacted me. Even a few small but well-known bloggers had reached out. It was all so overwhelming. Something told me I could trust her, and I made my decision. "Okay, Ashley," I said, "it's a deal. How exactly is this going to work? Are we going to film here? Or should we go to my hotel room or yours? What do you have in mind?" "Well," she said, "I've wanted to see your old house for a long time. It's only a 2.5-hour drive west of here. It's still early, and the jury won't start deliberating until Monday morning, so we have the weekend. Why don't we go there and you can show me where it all happened? You can tell me all the details on the way, and when we get there, I can talk to your children and parents if you don't mind." I thought about it for a moment before agreeing. It would be a nice break from the court case, and I thought it might be good to show Ashley around and perhaps mend our relationship. "Sounds good," I said. "Where are you staying?" "I'm at the Hilton around the corner. Are you?" she asked. "Same place. Want to grab anything before we head out?" She nodded, and we agreed to meet at my pickup truck in the parking lot. "You can't miss it," I told her. "It's a big blue pickup truck." "It's still Bill's. He probably has the biggest pickup in the state." Give me half an hour when we get there, and I'll change into something more comfortable and grab a couple of things, okay? She asked. I agreed, and we drove off. The sun had already set when we got onto Highway 20 heading toward Abilene. I was glad because I hate driving in the sun. Ashley had changed into her professional reporter's outfit and was now wearing a knee-length denim skirt and a white Western-style blouse. She looked just as beautiful as she did at school. I also got a good look at her slender legs and felt a familiar excitement below the waist. She smiled. I know what you're thinking, cowboy, she said. You do? I asked. You're wondering why I didn't sleep with Ashley instead of Jolene, aren't you? I laughed. Is that your keen reporter's instinct telling you that? I asked. No, it's the way you look at my legs, like you did in school, she said. I guess I thought you'd forgotten. Legs like that are hard to forget, I told her. I had always liked looking at her legs, especially when she was in her cheerleader uniform. She smiled and took out her tape recorder. Tell me, Ashley, is there a special someone in Austin? No, she replied. After my divorce, I focused almost exclusively on my work. As you can imagine, I have trust issues with men, and I haven't met anyone I want to spend time with yet. I'm sorry to hear that, I said. She laughed. I have my doubts, she said. Damn that reporter instinct. Anyway, what do you say we start our little journey? Sure, I said. She placed the recorder on the dashboard, making sure it wouldn't fall. Do you mind if I record? She asked. I shook my head. Of course, I replied. I want you to get it right. I took a sip of coffee and thought for a moment before beginning. Ashley, as you know, Steve, Jolene, and I were very close in school. After you left, the three of us stayed together. Right after graduation, I proposed to Jolene, and she said yes. Steve and I joined the Marine Corps right after school. We both went to San Diego for boot camp and even ended up in the same platoon. Jolene and I agreed that we would get married after I finished my training. After boot camp, Steve and I went our separate ways. He joined the Army and I joined the Marine Corps. He was sent to Camp Pendleton, and I was sent to Quantico, Virginia. About a month later, Steve badly injured his knee and was sent on medical leave. You've probably noticed that he still limps a little. Couldn't they give him an office job? Ashley asked. No, that doesn't happen, I replied. Everyone in the Marine Corps is a shooter, regardless of their job or specialty. Even clerks and computer guys like me have to meet physical requirements to participate in combat. Steve came home, and his father pulled some strings to get him a job in the county. Right. His father was the county commissioner, wasn't he? Ashley asked. I nodded. Yes, until he died. That's how Steve got elected the first time. I guess the voters thought highly of old Jenkins and decided to elect his son. I finished school, came home, and got married. Steve was my best man. Later, I found out he was also Jolene's best man, if you know what I mean. What a bitch, Ashley said. I ended up on the West Coast, and almost 9 months after our wedding, Brian was born. About a year later, I was sent to Okinawa for a year without my family. We came home for a month, and I let Jolene and Brian stay at my house, which I had inherited from my grandparents. We decided it would be easier for them if both of our parents were around. After that, I went back home, packed up Jolene and Brian's things, and we left for my next posting, Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. A little less than 9 months later, Jessica was born. Jolene had a difficult pregnancy and insisted that I have a vasectomy. She argued that if we ever wanted another child, I could always reverse the procedure. And I agreed. Although if I knew then what I know now, things would have been very different. Looking at the photos, it's easy to see Steve's features in the children, Ashley said. Didn't you notice that when they were born? That's a very good question, I replied. You probably remember that when we were younger, people often said that Steve and I looked like brothers. We have the same hair color and the same eyes. Heck, we even have the same earlobes. No, when they were little, they both looked a lot like me, and they both had their mother's eyes and nose. It wasn't until they got much older that I started to notice the resemblance. When we get to my house, you'll see their childhood photos. Anyway, I finished my service in the Corps, and we all came back home. My dad took me to his computer store and introduced me to all the other guys. I got a job working for him right away, and everything was great. Unfortunately, I had to drive a lot. Didn't that bother Jolene? Ashley asked. I shook my head. No, on the contrary. She seemed to like that I was interacting with customers and building relationships. My dad had customers in Dallas, Abilene, Wichita Falls, Amarillo, everywhere. Hell, we even had clients in Houston and Oklahoma City. Jolene thought it was great that I was building such a large client base, I said. In fact, my absence gave her all the time she needed to bring Steve into our home and into our bed. Of course, I didn't find out about that until much later. So she was really sleeping with Steve in your marriage bed? Ashley asked. Yes, all that time, I replied. That's why I burned her and the mattress after she was shot. I don't blame you, Ashley said. I burned a few other things, like the couch and the chair Steve used, I said. Jolene's wedding dress burned too. Ashley wrinkled her nose. So Steve was a regular guest in your house, Ashley said. Yes, so much so that he even had his own chair. At the time, I didn't mind because I considered him a friend. He would come over to my house, especially on Sundays after church. We would start watching the game, and he would almost always fall asleep in that damn chair. The kids started calling him Uncle Steve, almost at Jolene's insistence. It annoyed me at the time, but now I understand why. Listen, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't mind a cup of coffee. Want to stop? I asked. Ashley turned off the tape recorder. Sure, she replied. I can take a cigarette break if you don't mind. I nodded and turned on to the next exit. After the break, we got back on the highway and headed toward Abilene. Ashley took out the tape recorder and placed it on the dashboard. So you didn't know all this time that Jolene was cheating on you with Steve? She asked. No, I was the typical clueless husband. She never showed me any disrespect, at least not in front of me, and there was never even a hint of sex in the house when I wasn't there. I think they've become very careful over the years, I replied. When did you find out? She asked. About a year ago, I was sent to Los Angeles for a month-long training course on an ERP package that we were supposed to service for a client in San Antonio. Jolene and the kids were very supportive, texting and calling me every day. One weekend, I got an email from Brian. Jolene and Steve had taken the kids fishing at the lake, and he had caught a pretty big bass. And he sent me a photo, I said. I took out my phone and handed it to Ashley, telling her which album to open. In the photo I was looking for, Brian was holding a big fish. Steve was sitting next to him. Jolene was standing on the other side of Brian with her left arm around Steve's right shoulder. What do you see in this photo? I asked Ashley. Oh my God, she exclaimed. They look so alike, they even have the same dimples. Yes, I said. I noticed that too. Now look at Jolene's left hand. What catches your eye? Ashley rotated the photo and zoomed in with her fingers. I don't see any rings, she said. That's right, I said. You'll never guess where they are. Ashley looked at me quizzically. I led her to the folder where Jessica's photos were stored. Look there until you see the ashtray, I said. Okay, I found it, she said. Zoom in on the photo and tell me what you see. Her eyes widened as she enlarged the image. Is that what I think it is? She asked. I nodded. Yes, it's the same ring I put on her finger when I married her. It's also my great-grandmother's wedding ring. And guess whose butt is on that coaster? Let me guess. Steve, she said. Oh, that's not all, I told her. That ashtray isn't just in our bedroom, it's on my nightstand. That means Steve was in our bed, probably with Jolene. Ashley started to cry. How could she do that to you and you're saying Jessica sent this? She asked. Yes, I replied. She often helped my mom clean the house, which meant she had to clean and wipe down all the ashtrays. She saw it before they left, took a picture, and sent it to me. She was very upset. I can imagine, Ashley said. Did she say anything to Jolene? Not that I know of. I replied to her and asked her not to say anything to my mom. I also asked her to take the rings out, put them in her pocket, and mail them to me. Ashley laughed. I'm sure Jolene got in trouble for that, she said. Yes, Jessica was like a soldier. She did everything I asked, but Jolene was going crazy trying to find those rings. She even asked Steve to help her look. They went through the trash, opened the sink drains, and everything. I wish I had been there to record it. What were you doing? Ashley asked. My classes ended on Friday afternoon, so I left right away and got home on Saturday evening. Jolene met me on the street in tears because she had lost her grandmother's ring. She was completely distraught. I asked her all the usual questions. Did you look everywhere? Did you leave it on the sink? And so on. She kept insisting that she had looked everywhere. Then I reached into my pocket and pulled them out. I thought she was going to faint. Where did you get them? She asked. I just said that a trusted friend had found them and mailed them to me. I didn't mention Jessica because I knew she would tear him to pieces. I just told her, don't put them in the ashtray when Steve comes over next time. It was priceless. Her eyes got as big as saucers and she started crying, telling me all the usual nonsense about how much she loved me. Oh, I'm sorry, I said, seeing the look on Ashley's face. I didn't mean to argue. It's okay, she said. I've heard and said much worse, believe me, so tell me. What did you do next? Well, then I realized it was over between us, I said. I didn't have any real proof of their infidelity, no photos or anything like that. I decided to start investigating and get everything ready. The first thing I wanted to do was get DNA tests. I needed to find out if they were my children. I also bought surveillance equipment from our store. High-resolution cameras with motion sensors, voice-activated voice recorders, everything I needed. I even installed a listening device on our cell phone. Everything was recorded on my home server and stored in the cloud. I waited until she went shopping and installed everything. The DNA test was pretty simple. One of our clients in Dallas works at a lab that does these tests, and they provided me with everything I needed. I took samples from the children, asking them not to say anything to their mother. I took a sample from myself and waited until the following Sunday when Steve came over. As usual, he fell asleep in his favorite chair, so it was pretty easy to get a swab from his cheek. I didn't get the test results until a week later because the lab sent them to the store by mail. The test showed that there was a 99.9% probability that Steve was the father of both children, which meant that he and Jolene had been doing this for at least 16 years, if not longer. And all this time you didn't suspect a thing? Ashley asked. No, not the slightest suspicion. I'm sure if I had sat down and analyzed everything carefully, I would have figured it out, but the thing is, she never gave me any reason to doubt her fidelity. Our sex life was always great, even after the kids were born. So I waited for other evidence to surface. I didn't have to wait long. A week after I installed all the equipment, I got the first video evidence. I ended up going to Oklahoma City to set up the server, knowing I'd be there for a couple of days. The kids were with my parents, so Jolene was home alone. Shortly after I left, she called Steve and arranged for him to come over for the night. I called from my hotel in Oklahoma City and spoke briefly with her, just to let her know I was nearby. She said she loved me, but by that point, I didn't care. After that call, I logged onto my home server and waited. As expected, around 9 p.m., they were in our bed, engaging in their dirty business. Of course, he didn't use a condom, which really annoyed me. Worse than watching them growl like animals was what I heard. What was that? Ashley asked. Wait a minute, I said. I need to turn onto this road. Another 30 minutes. I had to concentrate on that stretch of road. It was already dark, there were no streetlights, no guardrails, no white lines marking the edge of the road. Anyone who wasn't paying attention could easily end up in a ditch or worse. Plus, Steve's drug-dealing friends were still around. Most of them had been arrested or detained after Steve's death, but I was always on my guard. I'd had to replace the windshield a couple of times after it was smashed in. There were also a lot of wild animals around, mostly armadillos and deer. I turned on my high beams and the light bar on the roof of the cab. Then I turned on the police scanner and CB radio and took my gun out of the glove compartment. I wasn't going to take any chances. Finally, we pulled up to my house and Ashley noticed the DSS car parked in the driveway. Who's that? She asked. Security, I replied. They've been watching this house since Steve was arrested. Some of his friends wanted to set the house on fire in retaliation, but we stopped them. It's cold. I tapped the gun in its holster. She understood what I meant. Will we be safe here? She asked. I nodded. Yes, I said. We have round-the-clock security. Security is also watching my family and children. I think most of Steve's friends are already behind bars, but we're not taking any chances. Hell, they had to fire almost the entire sheriff's department. Let's go take a look. I'll introduce you. Pulling into the garage, Ashley and I got out of the car and walked over to the patrol car. The police officer got out of the car and walked over to us. Bill Jennings? He asked. I thought you were all in Dallas for the trial. We shook hands. The trial just went into jury deliberations. By the way, this is Ashley Marks, a reporter from the Austin Statesman. She'll be with me over the weekend, gathering information about Steve for an article, I said. Nodding to her, he tipped his gray cowboy hat. Nice to meet you, ma'am, he said, smiling. He looked at me again. Everything's quiet here. It's been quiet since the Rangers kicked the last gang out of here, but who knows? My replacement will be here soon. Thanks, I said. We shook hands and parted ways. Good night, you hear? He said as we headed for the door. I will, I replied. You too. I put the coffee pot down and showed Ashley around the house. The house was originally built in 1866 by William Bryan Jennings after he returned from the Civil War, where he fought on the Confederate side. Since then, the house has been expanded, remodeled, and modernized many times, but in some places you can still see the original 150-year-old structure. Today, the house has 5 bedrooms on 2 floors and a 3-car garage with a covered porch. The house had a bedroom for each of the 2 children, a master bedroom, one room converted into Jolene's sewing and craft room, and another room converted into a play TV room for the children. I offered Ashley the master bedroom, as it was the only room with a bathroom, and I thought she would appreciate the privacy. On the other hand, I could sleep on the couch in my downstairs workroom, as I had been doing since I became convinced of Jolene's infidelity. However, Ashley would not hear of it. Nonsense, she said. This bed is big enough for 4 people. There's plenty of room. We're both adults and we can control ourselves. That threw me off balance. All right, whatever you say, I replied. She smiled and led me down the stairs. You owe me something, so let's get to it, she said. But let me call the kids first so they know we're coming tomorrow, I said. I called home, talked to my father, and then to the kids. They were happy to see Ashley and we agreed to come over for dinner. I grabbed my coffee and went into the living room. Setting down the cups, I found a stack of DVDs and took them from the cabinet where they were kept under lock and key. This should help, I said. Her eyes widened. My God, how many videos do you have? She asked. Quite a few, I replied. Some of them were filmed in the house, some were taken from surveillance cameras in my office. I also scanned all the documents and have a whole bunch of photos and audio recordings. So everything I have is here, and just in case, I made a few copies. I took out the disc, made sure it was the right one, and put it in the DVD player. I should warn you, there are some very violent scenes, I said. I'm ready, she replied. I reminded her that this disc confirmed my suspicions. I also asked her to listen carefully to what was being said. I pressed play, and the video started. Jolene entered the bedroom followed by Steve. Jolene took off her rings and threw them into the ashtray on my nightstand. Steve smiled and stubbed out his cigarette on them. To hell with him and his great-grandmother's ring, Jolene said. Steve laughed. Ashley grimaced, and tears welled up in her eyes. Finally, they started applauding. Ashley closed her eyes. It was too much for her. I skipped the most explicit parts, and Ashley seemed to appreciate the gesture. This will take about an hour, I said. It was bad enough as it was, and talking about it in bed would be murder. Thanks for helping me figure this all out, Ashley said. It's one thing to hear that someone you love and care about is cheating on you, and it's another to see it with your own eyes. They lay back and lit cigarettes. Steve started groping Jolene's rings again. Jolene turned on her side, facing Steve. I'm pregnant again, baby. Looks like you're going to be a dad again, she said. Steve frowned. Damn, you weren't taking the pill, he asked. Yes, maybe I missed a day or two, but that's all. Why can't you use a condom? I hate those things, he said. You know the rules, no condoms. Looks like you're going to have another abortion. Or convince him it's his baby. I can't have another abortion, Steve, she said. I've already had 3 and the last one almost killed me. I was so sick I ended up in the emergency room. Besides, you know deep shit had a vasectomy after Jessica was born. It was your idea so he wouldn't get me pregnant. So what do you want to do? Steve asked. I want to leave and marry you, she replied. It's all I've ever wanted. And I think Bill will understand. I told you I'm not the marrying type. Besides, family can complicate things, and I like what I have now. Bill works and pays the bills and I get my salary, he said. And don't worry about him finding out. Hell, he's so dumb we could be having fun right in front of him and he wouldn't notice. Why don't you do to him what you do to the other guys? She asked. Well, those guys were illegal immigrants anyway. No one would have noticed them. Besides, who's going to cry over some dirty drug dealers who are in the country illegally? Hell, getting rid of those guys probably secured half the votes for me. It's one thing to shoot an unknown illegal immigrant in the head. It's quite another to do it to a respected member of the community. You could get into an accident, Jolene said. It wouldn't be the first time, and you know people get killed all the time on Indian Trail. The people who do that are usually visitors who come to see the scenery, and they don't know the road like he does. Maybe we can do something about it, but we can't get rid of him yet. Maybe we can find something that will gradually take him out of action, like poison. Let's think about it a little before we come up with a plan. We'll have to get rid of him eventually, but let's do it right and at the right time, maybe after the kids leave home. That way you'll get his insurance and part of his business. In the meantime, go to the new clinic in Abilene. They'll take better care of you than those quacks you went to last time. I'll keep an eye on Billy Boy. If he tries to do anything stupid, like go to a lawyer, I'll talk to him and let him know, okay? Jolene nodded. Okay, baby, I'll do it. You're a good girl, she said, kissing him on the cheek. Now let's get down to business, she said. And the copulation began again. I stopped the video. Ashley shook her head, tears streaming down her face. I hate that bitch, she said. And you lived with her for 17 years? Please tell me you went to a lawyer after that. I went to a lawyer. It was a very eventful day. I'll tell you about it, I said, beginning my story. I did go to a lawyer. As I told Ashley, I made an appointment with Alan Jackson, a lawyer who had handled all of our family's personal and legal affairs for many years. What I learned at that meeting shocked me to the core. I recalled my visit to Alan's office. After the initial greetings, I got right down to business, showing him some of the evidence I had, including the DNA report and the video of Jolene's affair with Steve. Alan explained what I could expect. Although Texas is a community property state, divorce can be granted on the grounds of adultery or domestic violence. While adultery is not a crime in Texas, it can influence a judge's decision when dividing property and determining alimony. It can also be used in civil proceedings, but as Alan told me, the biggest problem I faced wasn't the law. Legally, he said, I was in a winning position. The problem, he added, was Steve. Listen, Bill, he said to me, Steve runs this county with an iron fist. He owns the sheriff's department, not to mention all the county judges. And in Texas, you have to file your lawsuit in the county where you've lived for the last 90 days. Frankly, I don't think there's a judge in this county who would even hear your case. Besides, Jolene's pregnancy could delay the process. Texas courts don't grant divorces until after the child is born. It doesn't matter who the father is. This is done so that final decisions on child support can be taken into account. One last thing, Bill. Steve told me that you might want to divorce Jolene. He made it clear that we should inform him of any attempts to initiate divorce proceedings. Wait a minute, I said. Are you saying that Steve ordered you to violate attorney-client privilege and possibly even the law by not reporting a crime? Alan nodded. I'm afraid so, Bill. I don't like it one bit, but I don't want to end up in a shallow grave on Indian Trail, if you know what I mean. You have no idea what you're up against, he said. I'm sorry, Bill. I really don't have a choice. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I'm sorry too, Alan. It looks like I don't have a choice either. You're fired. Effective immediately. I need all the family and business documents and all the backup copies you have. And I want them now, I said. I figured you'd say that, so I took the liberty of gathering everything together, he said, pointing to 2 boxes of papers on the floor by the door. He pulled a sheet of paper out of one of them, wrote a few words on it, and handed it to me. Thanks, he said, realizing I was giving him a way out. One more time, he said. I'm really sorry it turned out this way. I thought you were friends. Can't you forget Jolene? For the sake of the children. Could you have lived with being called a cuckold for 17 years? I asked him. I don't think so, he replied. Let me help you with those folders. It's the least I can do. He picked up the boxes of documents while I closed my briefcase and walked me to my car. Once there, he looked around before speaking again. Call the people I listed in the document I gave you, Bill. I didn't want to say anything in the office just in case, but the authorities are very interested in some of Steve's activities. Don't waste any time, please, he said. As far as I know, Steve is watching you. I apologize again for that. Maybe when this is all over, we can meet and sort things out. I shook his hand. Thanks, Alan. I understand. We'll be in touch. I returned to the office, thinking about everything Alan had said. I wasn't too worried about Alan getting fired, as I knew my father would support my decision. I was more concerned about Steve and what he or his henchmen might do to my family. I called the numbers Alan had given me and arranged to meet with each of the 3 men he had mentioned. One was an expensive, high-powered family lawyer with a well-earned reputation as a blood-sucking shark. Another was a state prosecutor, and the third was a senior officer with the Texas Rangers. All of them were in Dallas. I spoke with my father and told him that I had fired Alan as our lawyer. He didn't mind. "Why the hell did you do that?" he asked. I explained what Alan had told me, then showed him the DNA and video evidence I had presented to Alan. His tone changed significantly. "Damn," he said, "I suspected Steve was a snake, but I didn't think he was that bad. You need to get the kids out of the house. There's no telling what they might do." I agreed, but I was thinking of an excuse. Dad already had a plan. "When's your meeting in Dallas?" he asked. "When's your meeting in Dallas?" he asked. "When's your meeting in Dallas?" he asked. I told him I had a meeting tomorrow. "Good. Tell Jolene I'm sending you to Phoenix to check out the area, and you can stay there for a few days. I'll go with you just in case. Have the kids pack their things and stay with us. Hopefully it will take their minds off things for a while," he said. "Will you tell the kids?" "I have to, Dad. They have a right to know the truth," I said. "I won't blame their mother, but they're old enough to make their own decisions." "All right, son, do what you think is best. Mom and I will support you," he said. I called Brian on his cell phone and explained that he and Jessica would be staying with their grandparents starting today. "What's going on, Dad?" he asked. "I'll tell you later. Just make sure you and your sister are home right after school," I said. "Grandpa will pick you up from there." "Okay, Dad, we will," he said. "I love you," I said. I could almost hear him blush with embarrassment. "I love you too, Dad," he whispered. A few minutes later, I received a text message from my secretary. "Bill, Steve Jenkins is here to see you," she said. I took the gun out of its holster and placed it on the desk so it was within reach, turned on the VCR to record the meeting, and asked the secretary to send the tape and tell my father that Steve was here. Steve walked into the office like he owned the place and immediately noticed the 9mm pistol on my desk. "Nice equipment," he said. "I didn't know computer guys carried guns." "What do you want, Steve?" I asked. "Let's get right to it. Okay. Listen, I know you were at Alan Jackson's today," he said. "So what? What do you care?" I asked. "If you're thinking about divorcing Jolene, forget it," he said. "I don't care if you know about us, but I won't let you drag me through the mud in court." "Tell me, Steve. Why? I thought we were friends. Why did you and Jolene do this, and how long has it been going on?" "How long?" he asked. "That's good. You'll like it. We started in high school. You remember, right? I was with Ashley, but Jolene and I took a break and got involved. You were dancing with Ashley when we got back, remember? Hell, we were 18. We weren't doing anything illegal. Then we got back together when you were at Quantico. Remember I hurt my knee at Pendleton? We did it pretty often until you came back. Jolene was on birth control, but she must have forgotten to take it on your wedding day," he said. "You were my best man, you jerk," I said. "I was her maid of honor, too. I have to admit I really enjoyed watching her walk down the aisle. She was so beautiful. And you know what? 9 months later, Brian was born," he said. "Well, isn't that a low blow?" "Of course, we weren't together until you brought her home for vacation. It was just before you left for Okinawa. Yeah, Jolene and I had a good time. We spent almost every night together while you were gone. About 6 months later, she got pregnant and had an abortion. She didn't want you to come home with a pregnant wife. Damn, I even slept with her the day your plane landed. And you know what? 9 months later, Jessica was born," he said. "By the way, it was my idea to have Jolene make you get a vasectomy. We didn't want her to have your children. We thought it would be too complicated to keep track of who was whose. Jolene slipped up a few times over the years and had to have abortions. Good thing insurance covers abortions. We had a good thing going all these years until you decided to see the light. You couldn't just leave things as they were. No, you had to get all righteous and righteous. That's how it's going to be. Now that you know about us, there's no need to get a divorce and hide it. From now on, I'll come to your place at any time of the day or night. And when I'm there, I'll play with Jolene wherever I want. And when I'm there, you'll remember that I'm the man of the house. You'll do what I say, when I say it, and how I say it. And if you ever think of stopping me, think of the children. I don't want anything bad to happen to them." "You're a bastard," I said. "Just touch a hair on those children's heads, and I'll kill you like a rabid dog. And I don't care if it's the last thing I do in my life." "Say what you want, you bastard," Steve said. "Just remember who's boss around here. Hell, I own this whole county. I own the sheriff's department. I own every damn judge in the court. And now I own you. You play by my rules, and everything will be fine. For you and for the kids." "Would you hurt your own children?" I asked. What happened to you? I've grown up, Steve said. And you better grow up, Cookie. See you around. Steve left the office and I stopped recording. I burned it to a DVD, sent a copy to my father and my friends in Dallas, and then called my father. Dad, check your email. We need to leave. Right now, I said. He just threatened me and the kids. Okay, my father said. I'll call you back. Call Brian and tell him to pick up Jess and come to my house. Let the school know I'll meet you there. I think it's time to kick your wife out. I agreed and called the school, telling them that under no circumstances should my wife or Steve Jenkins pick up the children or even be in the building, explaining that it could be a matter of life and death. I also told them that the children needed to leave immediately. I called Brian and told him to pick up Jess immediately and go straight to her grandfather's house without asking any questions. We'll talk about this later, kids, I promise, I told him. And don't contact your mother or Steve under any circumstances. This is very important. Do you understand? Yes, Dad, I understand. What's going on? He asked. There's no time to explain right now, son. Just do as I say, okay? Okay, Dad, he said. I grabbed the gun, the DVD I had just burned, left the office, and jumped into my pickup truck. I knew my father would be on his way soon, so I didn't wait. If he said he'd be somewhere, he'd be there. I got out of the truck and headed home. About 15 minutes later, I pulled up to the house. I didn't see Steve's truck, but Jolene's car was there. Oh, good. I knew my father would be here soon. I entered the house, looking around for Steve or anyone else who might be waiting to hurt me. I kept my right hand on the gun in its holster. At first, I didn't see or hear anyone. I took an uncertain step into the house. Jolene was coming down the stairs. Bill, you're back early, she said. Did something happen? I looked at her, not saying anything at first. Is Steve or anyone else here? I asked. Why would Steve be here? She replied. I think you know why Steve is here. Maybe to pick someone up after dinner or to prepare my murder, I said. Jolene's eyes widened and she put her hand over her mouth. Yes, Jolene, I know. Oh my God, she said, I'm so sorry. Nonsense. Let me show you what your lover just said. And then I'll give you 30 seconds to get your thoughts together and get out of my house, I said. I put the DVD in the player, turned on the TV, and pressed play on the remote. I watched Jolene's reaction to Steve's confession and threats. Bill, it's not what you think, she said. Please let me explain. Steve just said some nasty things. We can work this out. Are you kidding me? You conspired with Steve from the beginning to cheat on me. Then you conspired with him to take my children away from me. And then you conspired with Steve to kill me. What kind of people are you? Now take your things and get out of here. Now, damn it! I didn't raise my voice, but she was clearly scared. I reached out, took her left hand, and removed her rings. I put my grandmother's ring in my pocket, took off my own, and slipped it onto her finger. Look, bitch, I growled. Bill, please don't do this to me. I'm so sorry, she croaked through her tears. Yeah, you're sorry, of course. You're a pathetic wife. Now get out of here. I grabbed her bag and threw it at her chest. She hit it with her chest. She rushed for the door. I rushed after her. Get out, damn it, I said. I wanted to kick her ass, but I was taught never to hit women. We went outside and walked to her car. She turned to me as she opened the door. Where should I go? She asked, crying. First, I said, stop crying. You got what you wanted. Second, I don't care. Go to Steve, go to your mother, or better yet, go to hell. As I said this, I noticed two cars pulling up to the driveway. First my dad's truck, followed by Steve's car. Jolene instantly stopped crying and grinned at me. Now, let's see who's leaving, baby, she said sarcastically. It would be a lot easier if you just came with us. Are you really going to do this? I asked. Without hesitation, she replied. Dad turned his pickup truck around to block Steve's way into the driveway and stopped. Steve slammed on his brakes, skidding past Dad's truck just a couple of feet away. Steve jumped out of the car. Dad jumped out too. He pulled out a 12-gauge shotgun, loaded it, and pointed it at Steve. What are you doing, Jennings? Steve yelled. I'm enforcing a restraining order, Dad replied. What restraining order? Steve asked. The one against you and your mistress. The one that says you two have to stay 500 feet away from my family and our property, my father said. And believe me, you bastard, I'd love to hurt you. So get in your truck and get out of here. Steve wasn't used to being treated like that, so he stopped. Two cars with flashing lights pulled up to the driveway and stopped behind Steve's truck. 4 highway patrol officers got out with their guns drawn. "We'll take care of this, Mr. Jennings," said one of the officers, approaching Steve. His father lowered his gun as the officer handed Steve the restraining order. "Is she the one?" he asked, nodding toward Jolene. His father shook his head. The officer approached Jolene and me and handed her the document. "Mrs. Jennings, you are being served with an order requiring you to stay 500 feet away from any member of the Jennings family and any property controlled by the Jennings Family Historical Foundation, including this house," he said. "If you refuse to comply with this order, you will be taken into custody. Do you understand?" "Yes, I understand," Jolene replied quietly. "Excuse me, officer," I said as he began to walk away. He stopped and looked at me. "Yes, Mr. Jennings?" he asked. I took the digital voice recorder out of my shirt pocket. "I would appreciate it if you would take Jolene and Mr. Jenkins into custody," I said. "Why should I do that?" he asked. I pressed the play button so they could hear the threats Jolene had just made to me and the children. Jolene looked as if she was about to cry. The police officer looked at her sternly, then took out his handcuffs. "Mrs. Jennings, you're under arrest. Please turn around and put your hands behind your back," he said. After handcuffing Jolene and reading her rights, he called another police officer on his radio and ordered him to arrest Steve. "You'll pay for this, you bastard," Jolene said as she was led away in handcuffs. "You'll all pay for this." By this time, another vehicle had pulled up to the driveway. A local TV station van stopped, and a reporter and cameraman got out of the vehicle as Steve was being arrested. They managed to film the arrest, which was shown on the evening news. Steve was, to say the least, unhappy. "Damn it! Do you know who I am?" he asked the police officer who was handcuffing him. "Yes, I do," replied the officer. "And to be honest, I don't care. You're still under arrest." "I'll take your badge for that," shouted Steve, red-faced. I realized I should have mentioned their plan to kill me, but I didn't have any proof with me. Some of it was still in the DVD player at home, and things were moving pretty fast. Still, I knew my contacts in Dallas had proof and were working on charges. The news van backed up and moved so the patrol cars could leave the driveway. The reporter and her cameraman headed toward me, followed by my father. "Miss Jennings, can you explain why Commissioner Jenkins was arrested?" she asked. "Yes, I can," I replied. "As far as I know, death threats are still a criminal offense, and even popular politicians like Steve and his married girlfriend are subject to the law. Now, if you don't mind, I need to take care of the children." I stepped back and my father joined me, leaving the reporter and her cameraman in shock. The voters in our district liked Steve, and I knew that his reputation as a defender of family values had just taken a serious blow. Unfortunately, the voters didn't know Steve the way I did, but I would make sure they did. The next stop was my parents' house, where I explained everything to what was left of my family. It was very difficult to tell my children that the man they knew as Uncle Steve was actually their biological father, but I felt I had to tell them the truth. At first, they didn't want to believe it, but I had the DNA test results to prove it. "I don't care what that piece of paper says," Jessica said. "You're my father, and you always will be." "I agree," Brian said. I loved these children and was proud of them, even if Steve was their donor. We hugged and cried. With tears in my eyes, I said goodbye to my children and family, went home, packed a few things for a couple of days, and headed to Dallas. "And that's when you realized how bad things really were?" Ashley interrupted me. "Yes," I replied, continuing my story after another sip of coffee. The next day, I met with Dave Brooks, a Dallas lawyer known as a bloodthirsty shark, who usually gets what he wants in court. I had no idea that he had arranged a meeting for me with all three men I had contacted. I was quite surprised when I arrived at his office early in the morning and saw them all there. "I'm sorry to have to do this, Mr. Jennings," Dave said, "but after the last video you sent us, we decided it would be best if we all met." I accepted his apology, and he introduced me to the other two men. John Hancock, a prosecutor from the district attorney's office, shook my hand and took charge of the meeting. "Mr. Jennings, let me begin by apologizing for what you've been through," he said. "This isn't easy to say, so I'll be blunt. We have evidence, a lot of evidence, that Steve Jenkins was not only involved in a number of criminal activities, but that he was aided by your wife. Not only did he use drugs, we have evidence that he trafficked weapons, engaged in human trafficking and slave trading, and was involved in organizing prostitution. Worse, court evidence directly links him to at least 6 murders. In addition, your wife is involved in most of this activity, especially prostitution. We had hoped to have a little more time to put everything together, but threats against you and your children have forced us to significantly shorten the timeline, he said. A third man, Don Jacobs, captain of the Texas Rangers, summarized the situation from his point of view. He made it clear to me that the entire sheriff's department was compromised and could not be trusted to do its job. As a result, he said, an attempt had been made to temporarily replace the department with Rangers and DSS personnel until new personnel could be trained and hired. Unfortunately, this also applies to the correctional facilities where Jenkins and your wife are being held, he said. Therefore, we need to act quickly before the situation worsens. As for your divorce, Dave said, I will seek to have it annulled, given your wife's criminal activity and the deception she and Jenkins have used against you. If that doesn't work, we will file for divorce on the grounds of adultery and abuse. Based on what you've told me, I believe you will get all your property and custody of the children, if that is what you want. We talked for about another hour, discussing strategy and possible scenarios. Dave handed me a DVD that he said contained video footage of my wife's actions, taken by private and government investigators. Some of it, he said, was very explicit and involved several people, including sheriff's deputies. Finally, John told me what he was going to do with Steve and Jolene. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, Mr. Jennings, he said. I'm going to seek the death penalty, at least for Jenkins. Your wife may be lucky and get life without parole. However, I must warn you, he added, your life and the lives of your loved ones are in danger. Be very careful. From what I've seen, you and your children are damn lucky to be alive. People who cross paths with those two usually don't make it out alive. You have our direct numbers, so if you see or suspect anything, call us immediately. You hear me? I hear you, I said. We shook hands and parted ways. My mind was in turmoil. The man I once considered my best friend turned out to be not only a murderer, but also a drug addict, an arms dealer, a pimp, and something else. And my so-called loving wife was part of it all. All the way home, I thought about everything that had happened over the past 17 years. How could I not have noticed any of it? Was I really so blinded by love and friendship? Finally, I returned to the city and received a desperate call from my son. Dad, you need to come home immediately, Brian said. What's wrong? I asked. Just come home now, he said, and hung up. I stepped on the gas and was home in 20 minutes. When I saw the ambulance and traffic police cars in front of the house, I immediately remembered what I had been told. I rushed to the door just as the paramedics were rolling the stretcher out onto the street. I stopped them to find out what had happened. The paramedic lifted the corner of the sheet and I saw Jolene's face. I'm very sorry, Mr. Jennings, said the paramedic. She's dead. Strangely, I wasn't that upset. When I entered the house, I saw Steve being carried out on another stretcher. His left shoulder had been torn apart by a shotgun blast, but he was still alive, judging by his moans. I saw the children and their father standing aside. Thank God they seemed to be okay, I thought. Stepping over the blood on the carpet, I walked over to them and hugged them to make sure they were okay. What happened? I asked. Dad answered. I brought the kids here to pick up some things, he said. We had only been here a few minutes when those two came in. I think they managed to get them out. Jessica and Jolene got into a fight, and Steve pulled out a gun. I heard the noise and came in through the back door. Brian and I were in the backyard gathering things. I grabbed the shotgun and came in just as Steve pulled out his gun. Jolene was trying to get him to put it down, but he fired. He shot her, accidentally, it seemed. Right in the stomach. I pulled Steve away by his shoulder and called 911. Then Brian called you. Jolene didn't live long. She was already dead when the ambulance arrived. I'm so sorry, son, he said. I shook my head. It's okay, Dad, I said. You did the right thing. And then I remembered that the security system on our home server was still working. I checked and made sure the entire incident had been captured on video. I showed the video to one of the officers while the other took statements from my father and children. He asked me to make a copy, which I did. I paused my story to take another sip of coffee. Do you have that video? Ashley asked. Yes, I do, I replied, pulling the disc out of the stack. I inserted it into the DVD player and pressed the button on the remote. The video began with Jolene and Steve entering the house through the front door. Soon, Jessica entered the room. What are you doing here? She asked. You shouldn't be here. You should be in jail. We got you out of jail, Jolene said. And we took your children. You're coming with us. I'm not going anywhere with you, Jessica said. You need to leave. Now. Jolene grabbed Jessica by the wrist. Oh, yes, you do, young lady. You and your brother are coming with us, Jolene said. Jessica grimaced and pulled away from her mother. No way, bitch, Jessica shouted. I hate you, and I'm not going anywhere with you. Jolene hit her hard across the face. You're going, she replied. I've prepared a beautiful room for you in Abilene. You're going to go there and do everything I tell you. Jessica slapped her mother across the face in response. This isn't happening, she said. Stunned by the blow, Steve grabbed Jessica's arms. Oh, yes, it is, she said. You're going to be our new star, right, Steve? Steve smiled in response. The boys will like you, girl, he said. Steve and Jolene laughed when Jessica realized what they were up to. She began to struggle even harder and finally broke free from her mother's grip. I'm not going, and you can't make me, she said. Now get out of my face. Steve pulled the gun from his belt and began waving it around as he spoke. Well, I think it's the end of you and your brother, he said. Jolene turned to Steve and tried to reason with him while Jessica began screaming for her grandfather. Wait, Steve, we agreed we wouldn't kill them here. Let's take them far away from Indian Trail where they won't be found. You know the place, she said. Steve shook his head angrily. No, he said. No, Steve. Put the gun down before something bad happens. We'll deal with them, but not here. We have to stick to the plan, she said. They started fighting, and then there was a loud gunshot followed by an even louder one. At that point, I stopped watching the DVD. And then Brian called me, he said. You know the rest. Ashley wiped the tears from her eyes as I got up from the couch. I'm done for today, if you don't mind, I said. I think I'll go out to the yard, have a smoke, and then go to the cafeteria. Ashley got up and followed me. I'll go with you if you don't mind, she said. We grabbed cups of fresh coffee and went out to the back porch. We were silent for a while. Ashley broke the silence. I forgot how dark and quiet it is here, she said. I guess I'm used to city life. She looked at me before saying anything else. Bill, you need to end this before it tears you apart, she said. That's easy for you to say, I replied. How do you come to terms with the fact that the woman you've loved all these years has been lying to you all this time? I feel like I've been cheated out of my whole life. My kids aren't even mine, for God's sake. I understand a little of how you feel, she said. Remember, my husband was a serial cheater. But not all men are like that. Yes, I know, I said quietly. Ashley hugged me, trying to comfort me. If it's any consolation, Bill, know that I'm here for you, okay? I'll always be here. I hugged her back and thanked her. It was nice to have her there, and I felt very comfortable with her. I can't tell you how many times I've regretted not meeting you in school, she said. I was thinking the same thing. Maybe if my father hadn't moved to Austin, we would have met, and none of this would have happened. You know, back then, I was even jealous of you and Jolene. Really? I asked. But you were with Steve. We only dated because you and Jolene were so popular back then. But even then, I had my doubts. I knew Steve wasn't the type to settle down with one girl. He even told me so himself, she replied. Well, there's no use crying about it now, I said. Besides, if we had been together, you wouldn't have become a reporter in the big city. Poof, she said. Of course I would have. You know I'm willing to sacrifice everything sometimes just to be with a good man, she added, looking at me. I looked at her again. You know, I think you would have done that, I said. After a while, we went back inside and started getting ready for the end of the day. I decided to lie down on the couch, as I had done many times since Jolene was injured. Even though the social worker was outside, I was still worried that one of Steve's friends might break into the house. Besides, I still wasn't sure how things would work out with Ashley, and I didn't want to complicate things considering that I had only slept with one woman in my entire adult life. Fortunately, Ashley understood. Just don't make a habit of it, cowboy, she said with a smile. I lay down and fell fast asleep, waking up to the smell of bacon. Get up, sunshine, Ashley said, standing over me in a long t-shirt. Breakfast is ready. Go get dressed. I got up from the couch and walked over to the kitchen table to admire the scene before me. Ashley had made pancakes, bacon, sausage, cornmeal porridge, toast, eggs, cookies, and gravy, my favorite breakfast. She hadn't even forgotten to put the peanut butter on the table. I was one of those guys who loved peanut butter on pancakes. This is something you could get used to, I said. Ashley came to the table with fresh coffee. How long have you been up? Not long. I hope you like it, she replied. It's been a while since I've cooked breakfast for a man. It smells delicious. My mom would approve, I said. I'm impressed. You didn't cook like this for your husband? I said, for a man. My ex-husband thought breakfast was fast food biscuits and eggs. Yuck, she said. Dig in, cowboy. We've got a lot to do today, she added with a smile. So what's the plan? I asked, enjoying the food on my plate. Well, she said, I want to see your family tonight, and then I thought we could visit Jolene's mother. I thought she might be able to shed some light on Jolene's thoughts. And then, if there's time, I'd like to stop by the cemetery and take a picture of Jolene's final resting place. And by the way, if you're counting on the same breakfast tomorrow morning, we need to go to the store. You're almost out of everything, she said. I devoured the food as if I hadn't eaten in a week, sipping coffee and expressing my gratitude to Ashley for her culinary talents. Jolene hadn't cooked a breakfast like this in years, and I felt like I had died and gone to heaven. I finished my meal feeling more satisfied than I had in a long time. I stood up, hugged, and kissed Ashley, thanking her for the wonderful breakfast. That was amazing, I told her. I think I'd better go get ready. Please do, she said. You're beautiful, but you need to shave. I went upstairs and thought about Ashley while I showered and shaved. In less than a day, I had fallen in love with her just as I had in high school. Maybe, I thought, Ashley and I were meant to be together. For the first time in many months, I felt happy. Ashley took a shower upstairs and got dressed in jeans and a t-shirt. She looked just like she had long ago. Grabbing her laptop bag and purse, she asked me to go with her. We pulled up to my parents' house and were greeted by two children who ran out of the house as soon as I stopped. I introduced everyone to Ashley and we went into the living room. Ashley explained what she wanted to do and asked if she could talk to everyone alone. We all agreed. My mom apologized and went to the kitchen to prepare dinner, and my dad took me into the living room. Ashley started with Jessica, and after an hour of talking with her, she had a long conversation with Brian. My dad and I waited and spent most of the time talking about man stuff. Hunting, fishing, soccer, nothing else. We both avoided anything that had to do with Jolene and/or Steve. After a couple of hours, Ashley came into the room and asked to talk to my father. I got the hint. Took the kids outside to play soccer. It took a little over an hour, but she finished talking to my parents and came out to join us until dinner. The kids seemed to really hit it off with Ashley, and she seemed to enjoy spending time with us. We split into two teams and played soccer. Jessica and I teamed up against Ashley and Brian and had a great time until Mom said dinner was ready. I enjoyed my vacation with Ashley and the kids, and for a while, I felt like I had a happy family again. After lunch, we said goodbye and got ready to leave. Jessica caught up with me before I walked out the door. Dad, she whispered, hugging me, if you don't ask her to marry you, I swear I'll kick your butt. What could I say? I promised her I'd think about it. So how did the interviews go? I asked Ashley as we were leaving. Very well, thank you, she replied. Bill, I know you're having some trust issues right now, so I wanted to explain why I interviewed everyone separately. She was quite perceptive, perhaps a result of her journalistic talent. It's good journalistic practice to get independent confirmation, you know. It's not that I don't trust you, I do. And I really believe you. I watched those videos with you, remember? But I wanted them all to be able to speak freely, without outside influence. I hope you understand, she said. I understood, and the fact that she explained everything without waiting for my response meant a lot to me. I understand, Ashley. You're doing your job and acting like a professional. Did you find out anything new? Actually, yes, she replied. Jessica told me that Steve has been showing her signs of interest for quite some time. That son of a bitch, I said. I also learned that your family loved you very much and thought the best of you, she added. They loved Jolene too, but they had problems with her and thought there was something wrong with her. They didn't say anything because they didn't want to interfere in your marriage. I think if they had known anything specific, they would have told you. What else did you find out? I asked. I learned what it's like to be part of a close-knit family, and I really liked it, she said. I really enjoyed the time I spent with you and the kids. Thank you for taking me with you. You're welcome, I replied. The kids had a great time too. I think they were very impressed with you. We pulled up to the apartment complex where Jolene's mother, Myrna, lived, parked, and headed for the door. Do you want to talk to her alone? I asked. I don't think that's necessary, she replied. Besides, I think you two need to work things out between yourselves. Myrna Carter opened the door at the first knock and invited us in. She moved slowly, partly due to her health and partly due to depression. Her husband, Jolene's father, had died several years ago in a mysterious accident, and after Jolene's death, she was left alone with no immediate family. How are you feeling? I asked, hugging her. I'm fine, Bill. Thank you for asking, she replied. She hugged Ashley and looked her up and down. Ashley Marks, you're just as beautiful as you were in school. Thank you for coming to visit an old woman. Ashley smiled as Myrna invited us to sit down. What brought you here? She asked. I explained what Ashley had done, and Myrna nodded approvingly. What can I tell you? She asked. Well, Mrs. Carter, I'm curious about one thing. Jolene and Steve's affair went on throughout her marriage. You must have known about it. I'm curious why you never said anything to Bill. Myrna lowered her eyes before answering. She looked embarrassed. Yes, I knew, she said. I'm sorry, Bill. I should have told you. You didn't deserve what they did to you. How long have you known? I asked. Practically from the beginning, she replied. Remember that year you spent in Okinawa? Steve practically lived with Jolene that whole year. They made sure he wasn't home when your family was around. I told her she was making a huge mistake, but she wouldn't listen to me. So, I began, if Jolene wanted to be with Steve so badly, why did she marry me? I would have let her go if she had just said she wanted to be with him. She was a confused girl, Bill. She actually loved both of you, but in different ways. You see, to her, you were stable and reliable, a good husband and father. Steve, on the other hand, didn't want anything to do with raising children. He was always a wild child and didn't want to be tied down by marriage. You were her rock, and he was her source of adventure. I'm so sorry, Myrna, I said. Jolene slept with Steve on our wedding day. She had 2 children by him and passed them off as mine. In the end, she planned to kill us all. Those aren't the actions of a loving wife. I know it's hard to believe, Bill, said Myrna, but she really loved you, at least at first. At least that's what she told me. So what happened? Asked Ashley. What changed Jolene so much? Well, Ashley, people change over time, I suppose, said Myrna. Steve became attached to Jolene and soon began to control her. I mentioned this to her once, but she warned me that if I said anything to Bill, I'd be sorry. Myrna looked at me. That's why I stopped visiting the children, Bill. I'm sorry, but I just couldn't go there and look you in the eye knowing what Jolene was doing. I knew I'd probably say something that would hurt them. Sometimes they scare me to death. Did you know about her abortions? Ashley asked. Myrna nodded. Yes, I did. Jolene told me herself. I told her she was being stupid and that sooner or later she'd get caught, but she just waved it off. She said it was her choice and Bill had no right to interfere. I advised her to do the right thing and divorce Bill. She laughed and said she would never divorce him. She said that in time she would inherit everything Bill had. How long ago was that? Ashley asked. I don't know. Probably about 1.5 years, Myrna replied. We left the question for a few seconds. So Jolene and Steve had been planning to do this with me for a long time. I wanted to tell you, Bill, but I was so scared. You know how scary Steve can be. I knew. Something about this bothered me, and I spoke up. Myrna, did your husband know about this? I asked. I think so, she replied. I know he and Steve were talking right before the accident. Myrna's husband was known as one of the best mechanics in the county, if not the best, and he took very good care of all his cars. Investigators called the accident an accident, but they never explained how one brake line mysteriously failed and how the tires mysteriously lost traction. I guess it's all in the past now, isn't it? Myrna asked. By the way, I don't blame you and the kids for not coming to the memorial service, especially after what she did to you. I was hoping some of her old friends would come, but no one showed up except me and the priest, she added, wiping away a tear. I want to thank you, Bill, for paying for the cremation. I thought it was interesting that you asked for her to be dressed in her wedding dress. I was hoping that maybe Jessica would want to do the same. Ashley looked at me. You cremated her in her wedding dress? Really? Why? I told you I burned her wedding dress. I just didn't say she was wearing it at the time. I also made sure she had the wedding ring I gave her. To be honest, I thought it was appropriate. I decided she didn't need our marriage, so... The final touch of revenge, I see. Did you burn your wedding ring too? Ashley asked. But not the engagement ring. I nodded. She looked half smiling as she took notes. Anyway, said Myrna, I want to thank you for making sure I got Jolene's retirement account. It's been a big help since I have a steady income and everything. Jolene had a retirement account? Asked Ashley. Yes, I replied. When she was shot, there was about $350,000 in it. I didn't even know she had such an account. There was another $200,000 in a savings account I didn't know about. I put it in a trust fund for the children's education. Don't ask me how she did it because I don't want to know. Interesting, she said, returning to her notebook. She turned to Myrna. Mrs. Carter, do you have anything to add? Myrna shook her head. Nothing that would catch my attention. I think you guys know pretty much everything. Myrna looked at me. I'm so sorry things turned out this way, Bill. I hugged her. It's all right, Myrna. Listen, stop by and see the kids anytime you want, okay? I'm sure they'd love to see you. She nodded, thanked me, and then hugged Ashley. Thanks for stopping by, she said as we were leaving. And please don't forget us, okay? We promised to stay in touch and drove away. You cremated her in her wedding dress with her wedding ring on? Ashley asked as we got into the pickup truck. That's what I thought at the time, I replied. Ashley went back to her notes and I headed to the cemetery. We walked through the well-kept grounds until we reached the columbarium where her ashes were kept. A small granite slab read Jolene Carter and listed her year of birth and year of death. There was no other indication on the slab as to who she was. At least you treated her ashes with dignity, Ashley said. Well, I replied, I did it mostly for Myrna. If it had been up to me, I would have just flushed her ashes down the toilet. I wonder why you made them use her maiden name, she added. Yeah, I figured since she didn't need our family when she was alive, there was no point in burdening her with our name forever, I replied. They tried to get me to write something like loving wife and mother on the headstone. I figured they wouldn't write adulterous or lying deceitful bitch, so I kept it simple. Ashley took her photos, turned to me, and put her hand on my chest. There's still a lot of anger in there, isn't there? Tell me, Bill, have you ever mourned her? Even a little? She asked. Honestly, no. In fact, I haven't shed a single tear since she was shot. All my love for her was destroyed by her lies and betrayal. Her threats against the children and me virtually destroyed all my feelings for her. I was ashamed, and tears welled up in my eyes. Damn it, I didn't want to do this in front of Ashley. I shook my head and started to turn away so Ashley wouldn't see my tears. She stopped me and made me turn back to her. You have to get this out of your head, Bill, before it eats you alive, she said. Let it go and move on. What life, Ashley? I asked. Everything I've believed in all these years has been a lie. Everything. I shook my head, and tears streamed down my cheeks. Ashley hugged me and held me close. That's what happened. I couldn't hold back my sobs for a long time. Ashley didn't say anything, just held me tight, kissing my face from time to time. Finally, I calmed down and looked at Ashley. I wiped a tear that had rolled down her cheek. What's that? I asked. She was my friend too, remember? The four of us, you, me, Steve, Jolene, the four musketeers. I loved her like a sister, she said. I hated what she became, but I still loved her. You loved her too, and for a long time. You married her, raised 2 children with her. That has to mean something. You're probably right, I said. Of course you are, cowboy. I'm here now, Bill, she added. And I'll be here as long as you need me or want me, understand? I smiled. I understand, I told her. She smiled and stroked my chest. We should go to the store before it gets too late, she said. What do you want for dinner? I thought before answering. How about Charlie's? I asked. Oh, they have amazing steak, and there's a band playing tonight. Are you asking me out on a date in front of your wife's grave? Why not? I asked. She smiled, kissed me on the lips, and looked at the inscription on Jolene's gravestone. Bye, Jolene, she said. Your husband is asking me out on a date. I looked at the inscription for a moment longer, then turned back to the car. Bye, honey, I whispered. I thought I heard a soft sigh, but there was no one there. I decided it was just the wind playing tricks on me and, without wasting any time, walked over to the car where Ashley was waiting for me. Are you okay? She asked. Yes, I replied, starting the pickup. Let's go get some breakfast and get ready for tonight. We stopped at the farmer's market where we bought eggs, bread, milk, bacon, and everything else Ashley thought we might need, and then headed home. Home? What a concept. For a while, I considered this place just a house, a place where I slept. But now, being here with Ashley, it felt natural. I took a shower, shaved, got dressed, and then waited for Ashley to finish doing what women do when they're getting ready for a date. Finally, she came down the stairs wearing a denim skirt that ended a couple of inches above her knees and a white blouse. The ensemble was complemented by a pair of rather expensive cowboy boots. A woman after my own taste. She was beautiful, and today, she was my date. I offered her my arm and we walked together to our chariot. Charlie's restaurant was well known in our neighborhood for serving the best steaks with all the trimmings. Potatoes and green beans with soft cookies completed the dinner. Afterwards, we had a beer and watched the dance floor where several other couples had already started dancing. "Would you like to dance?" I asked. "Sure," Ashley replied. We danced, and danced, and danced some more. We danced a two-step, a few quick waltzes, a few slow dances, and even participated in a line dance, which I hadn't done in a very long time. Ashley was with me the whole time, but she left a couple of times to go to the ladies' room. We danced to a slow tune, holding each other close when Ashley stopped and pressed herself against me, kissing me gently. Our tongues touched for a moment, and I felt a rush of excitement. She leaned toward my ear. "I love you, Bill Jennings," she whispered. "I always have and always will." That was it. And to be honest, I fell in love with her too. "I love you too, Ashley Marks," I said. She nervously licked her lips. "Take me home and make love to me like crazy, cowboy," she said. "Otherwise, I'll have no choice but to throw myself at you right here." Who could refuse such an offer? "Then we'd better take control of the situation, little lady," I said, trying my worst John Wayne impression. She smiled, took my hand, and led me to the parking lot. "Take me home," she purred. And yes, she started entertaining me in the car. Thank God it was dark and the windows were tinted as much as the law allowed, I thought. Otherwise, we could have been pulled over. Nevertheless, I enjoyed the show Ashley put on for me. "We're almost home," I told her. "Good," she whispered. Finally, we arrived home. I parked in the garage and pressed the button to close the large door. I couldn't wait to get out of the car. Finally, we calmed down and lay down on the bed, embracing each other. I thought about the events of the last 2 days. Just 36 hours ago, I was a depressed, despondent man, overcoming the pain of being betrayed by a lying wife who had repeatedly neglected me with a man I once considered my best friend. Now I had Ashley, who had shown me what it meant to love again. I knew what I wanted, but I was afraid she would think I was moving too fast. To hell with it, I thought. Full steam ahead. I looked up at her face, framed by long dark hair. She was staring intently at me. "What would you give a penny for?" she asked. "I don't ever want this to end," I replied. "Me neither," she said. "And what are you going to do about it?" Interesting choice of words, I thought. Probably my damn reporter instinct kicking in again. I opened the nightstand drawer and took out a small box, the one that held my great-grandmother's engagement ring. I had taken it to a jeweler to have it thoroughly cleaned after taking it from Jolene. Ashley was already sitting on the bed staring intently at the box. I told her about the ring and what it meant to me. The ring had been given to my great-grandmother a couple of years before my great-grandfather left to fight the Germans in World War I. He fought in the Battle of Belleau Wood in 1917, where the Marines earned the nickname Devil Dogs. He survived the war, but exposure to German gas significantly shortened his life. My great-grandmother passed the ring down to her eldest son, who gave it to his future bride. After Pearl Harbor, he fought the Japanese in the Pacific and was wounded at Guadalcanal and Iwo Jima. My grandfather returned home, and they had 2 boys, one of whom was my father. By the time my grandmother died, my parents had been married for a long time, so it was decided that I would get the ring. You see, Ashley, this ring symbolizes not only my love for you, but over 100 years of Jennings family history. I understand if you'd prefer a new ring, but I want you to know what it means to me. It's not just something that's passed down. Ashley looked at me with tears in her eyes. "Yes," she said. "Both and a third thing. I'll marry you and I promise to make you the happiest man in the world for the rest of your life, and I'll wear your great-grandmother's ring with pride. There's just one condition." "Condition?" I asked. "Yes," she said. "Promise me you'll reverse the vasectomy." I plan to give you a house full of children. Maybe one day I can pass it on to one of our grandchildren. I smiled, slipped the ring onto her finger, and we kissed for a long time before making love again and falling asleep in each other's arms. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of bacon, which was better than sex. I did my morning chores and went downstairs, where Ashley was cooking another one of her amazing breakfasts. We ate breakfast and gathered our things for the trip to Dallas. We decided to take a shower together, which naturally led to another hot session of lovemaking. I decided to call the kids and tell them the news when we were finally dressed and ready to go. I dialed the number and put it on speaker so Ashley and I could hear their response. Brian shouted, "Wow, wow!" When I told him we were getting married, Jessica was just as happy. "Way to go, Dad," she said. "You found a real winner." "Congratulations, you two," my father said, "and welcome to the family, Ashley." "Thank you, Mr. Jennings," she replied. "Mr. Jennings is my father," he said, laughing. "You can call me Dad if you want." "Okay, Dad," Ashley said. "Thanks again." "Ashley, I'm so happy for you," my mother said. "Have you set a date yet?" "Not yet," Ashley replied. "I have to take care of some things in Austin first, but we'll try to do it as soon as possible." I had one more thing to discuss with the kids. "Brian," I said, "you know, I think it would be great if you and Jessica visited Grandma Carter sometimes. Just stop by to say hello and let her know you're thinking about her. She's still your grandmother and she misses you. What do you say?" "Okay, Dad," he replied. "Good," I told him. Brian and Jessica were wonderful kids and I knew they would do the right thing. We said goodbye and got into the pickup truck to head home. I thought back to what Ashley had said to my mother. "I almost forgot that you work in Austin. What are your plans?" "Long-distance relationships don't always work out," she said. "Did you know that Jake Carson is stepping down as editor-in-chief of the Daily Record?" she asked, referring to the local newspaper. I didn't know that, but asked her to continue. "I sent my resume last week before we met, and they want to talk to me about the job. He's not retiring for another 3 months, and I'll need 2 months to wrap things up at the Statesman." "What if they don't hire you?" I asked. "It's no big deal," she replied. "I'll quit my job and live with someone I know in the neighborhood," she joked. Anyway, as far as I understand, no one else is interested in the position. And the board really wants a woman, especially with my experience. And I have a few ideas on how to increase circulation. "Sounds like you've got it all figured out," I said. "Well, I like to be prepared," she replied. "Whatever happens, you know I'll support you 110%, right?" I asked. She hugged me around the neck and looked me in the eyes. "And that's only part of the reason I love you so much," she said. "Think about it. If I had stayed at the Statesman, who knows where they would have sent me? And for how long? They would have called me in the middle of the night and sent me across the country to write about some political jerk. Then they'd send me to the other side of the country to write about something else. I'm tired of living in hotels. So when I saw this opportunity, I couldn't pass it up. The pay probably won't be much better. In fact, it'll probably be less. But it's worth it to live in one place. And if I don't find a job, it's no big deal. I can always write on the internet, maybe do some freelance work, or even write a book. Maybe I'll start a blog about stupid people who cheat on their spouses. Personally, I'd rather spend all my time in bed with you." "That's the plan I like best," I told her. "Let's go outside." After closing the house, I picked some flowers from the flower bed in front of the house. "If you don't mind, I'd like to stop somewhere on the way," I said. "Oh?" she asked. "Are you hiding a girl somewhere in the alley?" "You know that's not true," I said. I knew she was just teasing, but the question still hurt. I didn't think about it for long. "You're right, I'm sorry," she said. "We were both deceived, so it's a sore subject for me." "I was thinking about what you said yesterday at the cemetery. I thought it was time to put it behind us," I said. "Good for you," she replied. We drove to the cemetery and stopped near where Jolene's ashes were kept. We both got out of the car and walked over to the memorial. I knelt down and placed the flowers in a vase next to the memorial. "By the way, Jolene, Ashley and I are getting married. Just thought you might be interested," I said. "Yes, she's dead, I know. But for some reason it felt therapeutic to say it out loud." Ashley stood over me and spoke too. "And if the kids are okay with it, I plan to adopt them," she said. We said goodbye and walked to the car. "Do you really want to adopt the children?" I asked. "Of course," Ashley replied. "They deserve a mother they can trust. You don't mind?" "Of course," I said. At that moment, I knew that marrying Ashley was the best decision for all of us. I thought she would be a great mother. And I knew that Jessica would need a strong and loving mother when she became a teenager. We were quiet for most of the drive to Dallas, and Ashley used the time to work on her story. She seemed to enjoy it, and I had time to reflect on the events of the past few months. Finally, we arrived at the hotel and picked up our things. You know, Ashley said, you don't have to get a room. The newspaper is paying for my room until everything is sorted out, so why don't you move in with me? I'll be working on my articles, of course, but we'll have plenty of time. I liked the idea and agreed. At least let me pay part of the bill, I said. She waved her hand. You can pay for our dates, okay? She asked. And so it was decided. I checked out of my room and moved in with Ashley. That evening, we went to a restaurant, danced, and returned to the hotel for another night of passionate love. The next morning, we arrived at the courthouse in time to get good seats. The jury was brought in from the hotel and immediately began deliberating. Ashley did her job as a reporter, recording the testimony of both sides' attorneys and talking to other observers and legal experts. The jury did not delay in reaching a verdict. At 1:30 p.m., word came that the jury was ready to announce its decision to the judge. Steve sat emotionless as the jury entered the courtroom. The judge took his seat and asked if the jury had reached a verdict. "We have reached a verdict, Your Honor," said the foreperson, handing a piece of paper to the bailiff. The judge read the document and folded it. He turned back to the foreperson. "Is this a unanimous verdict?" the judge asked. The foreperson replied that it was. "Very good," said the judge. "May the defendant rise?" asked the judge. Steve and his lawyer stood up. In the case of the People v. Steve Jenkins, the jury has found the defendant Jenkins guilty on all counts and has unanimously agreed on the maximum penalty provided by law, which is death, he said. Steve's lawyer asked the jury to consider the punishment in the event of a guilty verdict, believing that this would make it easier to avoid the death penalty, as the decision had to be unanimous. If even one juror disagreed, Steve could receive a maximum sentence of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. It was a risky move, and Steve lost. Steve was found guilty on 6 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of manslaughter, several counts of conspiracy to commit murder, and a host of other charges, including smuggling, human trafficking, drugs, and prostitution. The defense asked to question the jury, and the judge agreed. One by one, all 12 jurors said they agreed with the verdict and the punishment. "Mr. Jenkins, I'm not a big fan of the death penalty, but I completely agree with the jury's decision. If there was ever a case that deserved the death penalty, this was it. I order that you be taken from the courtroom and transferred to the state prison at Huntsville, where you will be executed in accordance with the law in the near future." "May God have mercy on you," the judge said, banging his gavel. My lawyer came over to me and motioned for me to follow him. We caught up with the officers who were leading Steve out of the courtroom. He talked to them for a minute, and they nodded, looking at me. Steve looked at me, his eyes red and his body hunched over like an old man. "What are you staring at, you bastard?" he said. "I'm looking at a useless piece of shit," I replied. "I always wanted to know what he looked like, now I know." My lawyer handed Steve 2 forms and told him to sign them. "What the hell?" he asked. "What are these forms?" One document is a waiver of all parental rights to Brian and Jessica Jennings, and the other is a disposition of your estate upon your death. Essentially, it's a will, stating that whatever remains of your estate after taxes and penalties are paid will be liquidated and divided into 3 parts. 1/3 will go to Myrna Carter, the mother of your longtime mistress, 1/3 to the Brian Jennings Trust Fund, and 1/3 to the Jessica Jennings Trust Fund, he said. Steve looked furious, but realizing his final defeat, he signed both documents. He looked at me with hatred in his eyes. "Are you satisfied now?" he asked. "I will be," I replied. "By the way, Ashley Marks and I are getting married, and she has agreed to adopt the children. Enjoy yourself, you bastard. I can't wait to piss on your grave." My lawyer thanked the officers, and we left. I didn't see Steve again until the day he was executed. And yes, I peed on his grave, but I made sure Ashley wasn't around. I don't think she would have approved. Finally, the nightmare was over, and I looked forward to a new chapter in my life and Ashley's. Epilogue. True to her word, Ashley showed me the story she wrote about me, and I was impressed. The story received widespread publicity, and Ashley appeared on several talk shows to discuss the whole sordid affair. She was even offered a movie role, but she ultimately turned it down. However, she did win a Pulitzer Prize for her story. The Statesman newspaper didn't want to let her go, but they understood that her life had taken a different path, so they gave her a nice severance package and a recommendation. The board of directors of the Daily Record gladly accepted her as their new editor-in-chief, and in her first year, the small newspaper's circulation tripled, forcing the company to build a new building and hire additional staff. We both decided we didn't want a big church wedding, so we got married in our backyard with our family and friends. Ashley's parents came from Austin with a few of her closest friends from the Statesman. Her father walked her down the aisle and shook my hand warmly as he handed her over to me. Brian was my best man and Jessica was Ashley's maid of honor, so it was a truly family wedding. After we exchanged vows, the minister asked everyone to turn to face the guests. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor to introduce Mr. and Mrs. William Jennings and their family, he said to loud applause. Brian walked over to Ashley and put his arm around her shoulders. Welcome to the family. Mom, he said with a smile. Ashley hugged him back and tears welled up in her eyes. Jessica hugged her too. I love you, Mom, she said. I love you too, Ashley replied, hugging both of her children. My father came over, hugged us both, and then took an envelope out of his pocket. I hope you enjoy your honeymoon, he said, pulling out the envelope with 2 tickets for a week-long Caribbean cruise. Thank you, Dad, Ashley and I said almost simultaneously. And so a new adventure began. 10 months after returning from the cruise, Ashley gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl. We named the boy William Frederick after my grandfather and the girl Alicia Marie after Ashley's grandmother. On the day they were born, I happened to run into George Mason, a well-known politician from our area. He shook my hand and accepted a cigar from me in honor of the occasion. Congratulations, Bill, he said. I thanked him. By the way, he said, you know the elections are coming up. There are a few people who think you could take Steve's place on the old commission if you're interested. After all, you're the one who got him kicked out. It's like the movie The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, right? I asked. He laughed. Except this time John Wayne wasn't waiting in the shadows, he said. Thanks, but I can't take a pay cut. I've got 2 new mouths to feed, I replied. You can keep running your business, he said. Maybe there's another reason? Yes, there is. My dad said something when we last discussed the situation with Steve, I replied. What exactly? George asked. Power corrupts, I said. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe to my channel and stay tuned for the next video.